I guess by way of scene setting, 75% of respondents in our January poll told us that improving retention was their top priority for 2024. And that was over reducing agency spend, over compliance, and over looking at demographics. Last year, we also ran a social care forum specifically about reducing agency spend, which is still available on our website. And you won't be surprised that one of those tips centered around better retention activities. But we did look at a range of topics. So if you'd like to access that as well, you can find it both on our website and on our LinkedIn group. So what Dave and I are planning to do today is to bring to life our extensive data and very real feedback from the many exit and retention interviews that the Cohesion team conduct across social care, as well as other useful data sources led by both Cohesion and sector leaders. So is retention better or worse? I suspect many of you will take a good guess at what we're going to find as we walk through the presentation today. But whether we answer in line with your own experiences, what we do hope is that we share some useful solutions that we have seen work in practice. So for those of you that may not know as well, we deliver recruitment and workforce solutions across all care settings, as well as running early talent programs for some of the biggest UK corporates, which puts us in a really strong position to share both our data and insights. So did you know, in our survey of 2,200 leavers, we found that 49.5% of them were moving on to a different industry over the last 3 years. That's nearly half of our care employees that we're not only retaining to their existing roles, but we're not even keeping them in the industry, which is worrying. Data from Skills for Care shows that there was an estimated 152,000 vacancies for adult social care in the year 22-23. And similarly, the turnover rate of directly employed staff working in adult social care for the same year was 30%. So compared to other industries and what's reported elsewhere, the turnover rate in the care sector is roughly double. And in terms of new recruitment, the UK has seen an increase last year in international recruitment, with 11% of new starters in 2022 arriving to the UK to start a role in adult social care, compared to 4% the year before. But the question stands, how sustainable is this? And of course, we've seen changes in the legislation with more to come. Is this just a short-term solution, or can it work longer term? How likely are overseas recruits likely to stay in the sector? All remains up in the air at the moment. The data points to some of what we do know, that vacancies are on the rise, and some of what we don't know. How well are we actually doing at retaining these recruits? So whether you're a care home, a manager, or a care employee, you're involved in the process of resources being spent, whether it's in recruitment, onboarding, time spent training, and losing these and having to start all over is a huge loss, both in terms of time and money, but also a loss to the people that you're supporting, because they're not getting that continuity of care that we all know is really critical. So what are the factors that contribute to better retention, and what's making it worse? Over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Amanda. So we attempt to answer this very question with our source, and that's the employees themselves. So what we've done, we've collated data from 4,900 interviews taken from new starters and leavers. And this is data from the exit and the retention interviews conducted by Cohesion between January 2020 and August of 23. Now, the majority of these were with frontline care workers, support workers, some nurses, activity coordinators in care home settings. And the exit interview calls make up just under half of our overall data set with frontline carers in a range of different settings, but the largest proportion working within older people's services. The remaining half, so from the retention calls, were completed at 2 weeks and 8 weeks of somebody starting in their new position. Now, what we've also used is over 1,600 survey responses that are gathered from applicants to social care. And this is to gauge what other sectors they're applying to, what's important to them when they're applying for a role in social care. And what we've done is we've focused on 3 years of data, and that's to help us to get an understanding of the recurring issues, the challenges that we face, and those employees face themselves. So the questions that we ask to gauge how happy the employee within those calls are, what did you enjoy about your role? What did you like least? Were there sufficient one-to-one meetings with your managers? Did you receive the training you needed for the role itself? How did you rate your inductions? And how valued do you feel in your role? Right, so opening with the most important question, what were social care employees' main reasons for leaving across all of that data? So family, domestic and personal reasons consistently ranks as the top reason across all 3 years of data. Now, you could argue that personal and domestic reasons could be assumed to be outside of an organisation's influence. And often this is the case, but what we see is threads of information that suggest these could be things that would have helped employees to stay if either managerial relations were better or more flexible working arrangements will be adopted. And also, there's no reason to see these reasons as completely unrelated. So, for example, what we see in the data is a link between working hours and family, domestic and personal reasons. So often a change in family needs means that working hours and shifts are no longer suitable, where perhaps once they were previously. So we can't be too quick to assume that these are all entirely out of our control. So number 2, meanwhile, relationship with manager and management style. Again, one of the top 3 reasons across all 3 years of data. And this too can link to varying frustrations surrounding lack of support and hence falling into this category. Now, a career change or working hours have interchangeably ranked 3rd and 4th across the years that we've reported on. During the pandemic, we borrowed loads of people from other industries, which unfortunately often pay more. And we've seen, obviously, people now returning to those sectors where they were before. Hospitality, retail, and it still feels like a missed opportunity that we had such an influx of new talent, but we were unable to retain them. And it's also worth looking at pay rates as a reason for leaving, dare I say. We've seen this increase by 1% each year over the last 3 years. And look, while people aren't leaving en masse because of pay, we know why people generally join the sector, it still crops up as a reason for people being hesitant to apply to social care. And again, according to Skills for Care data, frontline workers need to be paid around 60 pence more than the national living wage to see an improvement in turnover rates. So good news that we see the rise in national living wage coming again, but I guess the argument is only if, as a sector, we're able to pay for that increase. And we can't assume that pay as the reason for leaving isn't also a consequence of ongoing cost of living crisis. And as employers, we can look into tools such as on-demand pay to help our employees in need. And many providers that we speak to or that we see adverts online for are absolutely deploying these tools successfully. So all of this is showing that the data surrounding the main reason for leaving has pretty much remained consistent across the years that we're talking about, and actually before that as well. We've been doing these interviews for a very long time, and these are the trends that we see year on year. And you can see these concerns in data form, as we presented on screen now, or you can see them in quote form from the people that we speak to. So here are some real quotes. There's an individual here unable to work due to childcare responsibilities, another with complaints surrounding the lack of shifts, and another feeling unsupported by management or the organisation themselves. And this might be familiar in one way or other from what you hear within your organisation. For us, we know that we've heard echoes of all of these across the 3 years. Just a quick yes to some of the questions coming in. We absolutely will be sharing the slides and the recording for you all. Right, so in order to dig deeper and understand who are these people, what are their lives, and more importantly, how can we support them? So what we've done, we've personified the comments and we've created fictional characters. So we'd like to introduce our three characters to you this morning who represent some of the top problems faced by employees. Back to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Dave. So to help us accomplish this and put faces and names to the problems, meet the care professionals. We have Lisa, Maxine, and Olu. We're going to start with Lisa. Lisa is a new mum and she's a long-time care employee, whereas Maxine is new to care, and Olu is our young male care employee who is working as a bank worker. Between these three, they represent the top problems faced by employees in care. So let's see if we can solve some of these problems. Lisa's been working in care for 10 years. She has extensive knowledge and she's a really valued member of the team. She's also helped to train new recruits, and she stands in to lead the team whenever she needs to because she's got loads of experience. And she's happy to step in, step up and share that knowledge. Problem is that Lisa has had a change in circumstances because of childcare responsibilities and she can't work a late shift anymore. So losing Lisa is clearly going to be a big blow to the team and potentially upset the wider team dynamic. She's disheartened. She's disheartened because she's not ready to say goodbye. She loves her job, and therein lies the problem. But despite speaking to management, she can't adjust her shifts to suit. And if it carries on, she's going to have to find a different job. And hate to say it, but probably look outside of sector so that she doesn't have the problem of working a late shift. So let's look at the data. Lisa represents one of 82% of the adult social care workforce made up of female workers, and personal and domestic responsibilities have continued to be a top reason for employees, as Dave said, for the last 3 years. Add to this picture the shift pattern, which is currently the fourth most common reason that people give us in their exit interviews. So we hear all the time from employees that their personal circumstances change and the shifts that once were suitable aren't anymore. What we hear from organizations we engage with is that offering flexible working is actually really hard in practice, and we know that. It's difficult. It's not a magic wand that we can wave over it. And some just say it's simply impossible to always offer the level of flexibility that's required. So what could the solution be for Lisa then? Our response to this would be that we understand while it isn't easy, it's long been a problem, but technology is advancing, and so investment in this for your managers may give them the tools needed to make this work more often. It's not always going to be possible, because the alternative is that you'll lose good people. And from an employment law perspective, Flexible Working Act as it is will be replaced by the Flexible Working Bill, which will give more opportunities to request flexible working and making the process shorter and easier to apply for. So if we look what the NHS are doing, they've included flexibility as a core part of the message when advising trusts on retention strategies. They're using bank workers more, and they're sharing employees across services as much as possible. And actually, we've got a case study on that later. The NHS recommend having open and honest conversations with the whole team to see where needs and adjustments can be pieced together and accommodated. And by this, we mean don't wait for someone to ask, and worse still, not ask and they just leave. Have those regular one-to-ones and directly ask, are those shifts still suitable for you? Maxine's up next. Maxine is new to care. She's very excited to begin her care career. She's eager to grow, learn, and progress, and is excited by the career progression potential. But she wants to talk about these opportunities. But feels like her manager isn't supporting her to achieve this goal. And Maxine's story is common in that we often hear people tell us they don't have access to their managers and that their one-to-ones aren't always happening regularly. So looking at the data, 60% of new starters told us that opportunities to develop is important to them. And as early as, wait for it, drum roll or not, 2 weeks into the job, 72% of new starters already want to know how can they develop in the job. 70% of leavers wanted more personalized learning and development that would go beyond that mandatory training. So our retention data tells us that one of the top reasons people tell us they are happy is because they have a positive relationship with their managers. The happiest new starters are those who get to deliver high quality care and have positive engagement with their managers who spend time with them. And of the 80% of new starters who are happy in their role, at the second retention interview, 82% of them told us they are receiving the support that they need from their line manager. The flip side of that is that relationship with manager is the third top reason for leaving from our exit data, about 13%. So what are the solutions? First up, explore individual learning routes, understand the new recruitment process, how the candidate wants to develop, what they'd like to do. Lots of them will want to be great carers, and that's fine too. Not all employees in our experience want vertical progression, don't necessarily want to supervise or manage a team. Some want to become specialists in topics such as autism or dementia. So we'd recommend to start learning early, because online learning in the onboarding process gives candidates an opportunity to access this while they're still waiting for their first shifts to be booked and come through. Discuss learning and development during the first few one-to-ones and on an ongoing basis. You can use tools such as Care Character to facilitate these conversations. Care Character is a recruitment and retention tool specifically designed for the care sector. As part of the recruitment process, candidates use a short online assessment that evaluates their behaviours and skills across 7 qualities of care. And one of the 4 reports that's produced is a development report used by new staff members and their managers to guide learning and development, which helps to improve retention. We'd recommend to train line managers and make sure that they're competent and having meaningful one-to-ones, and that they're conducting stay interviews. So a stay interview is different from a retention interview in that they specifically explore what's going to make somebody stay. Clues in the name, really, isn't it? I.e., what development do they want and how they will be supported to get there. As part of the follow-up, we'll include some examples of stay interview questions. Mentors, buddies and mentors specifically can support you to identify development opportunities and to foster growth. And they also support busy managers who have lots of other responsibilities. So on to Olu. What are retention data? So let's meet Olu. So Olu is a 19-year-old health and social care student. He's currently working in a bank position in care, and he wants to work alongside his studies for an expected 3 years. It's not a bad period of time, 3 years, is it? His induction was poor, and it was conducted by an agency worker, and he still hasn't had his uniform. Because he's a bank member of staff, priority for shifts is given to permanent members. Doesn't really feel like he's part of the team. He feels there's a sense of why waste training and resources on someone who doesn't plan to stay long term. What our retention data tells us is that 100% of those who rated their induction as poor at the 2-week point told us that they were unhappy or very unhappy in the new role. I mean, there's a massive connection here. Reported by Skills for Care, the turnover rate amongst those aged under 20 was a shocking 52.6% compared to 24% for those aged 50 to 59. There's also the matter of care perception, which, if you look at the HFT Sector Pulse report, if you look at Care England's Ask of the Government, it's all about career pathways, but equally elevating the perception of care. And in our applicant survey, 25% of males in the age group 19 to 25 answered what makes you hesitant about applying to a job in care with too often seen as an unskilled job with poor prospects. I mean, these are the perceptions that keep young, eligible workers away from the care sector. And this can change when we change the experience of the sector for them. So what's the solution? something that we preach an awful lot of is positive pass-through. You've got Olu for 3 years. He's being really honest. His future is in healthcare, but social care can have him as a flexible resource for 3 years, which is really quite a long time. So we need to make sure that his experience is the best it can be. His induction and his onboarding needs to be inclusive, and best not to make assumptions that because someone is a health student or a zero-hour employee, they don't need help. They do, same as anyone else. If possible, looking into giving him a buddy or any other extra support. Ollie's situation goes hand in hand with Lisa's. Let's suppose that we had both of them as our employees. Our long-term employees need to take fewer shifts, and bank workers like Olu can fill the gap as required, while our long-term employees take shifts more suited to family commitments. So all different type of workers with different problems, but it is possible to solve and retain both on some occasions. So using Olu's available hours before using agency workers is, in our opinion, the best case all round. And often students tell us, we've worked closely with a lot of Association of colleges, and students tell us that they want to work full-time in the holidays and then revert to part-time working during term time. Sorry, I've just lost my point. But this all supports lower agency spend. But unfortunately, we don't have many Ollies in our sector because candidates like him are not seen as a long-term option. And there's a perception that he may already turn off from care. So referring back to positive pass-through, if Olu as a young male has a good experience, he will recommend other students into the care sector as well. Now, Olu's studying health and social care. There are plenty of students out there at university who are studying to be doctors or nurses. Goodness, doctors have got to get through 7 years of higher education, let alone those A-level years. So there is a lot of opportunity in that area. So now back to Dave for some more.
Thanks, Amanda. So some more quotes coming at you now. Yeah, for every Lisa, Maxine and Olu, there are hundreds of Keiths, Lucys, Preeties, all with their own voices. And some are seeking career progression, some are looking for more managerial support, some are looking for more flexible shift patterns. And there are people who didn't receive a positive induction or received initial training, and they felt abandoned, quite frankly. So the question remains, what can we do? So according to our data, over 36% of care and support workers still haven't had a review meeting, catch up, some sort of conversation with their manager by week 8 of them joining the organisation. And despite the fact that relationship with manager has remained the top 3 reason for employees leaving over 3 years, we've had an outpouring of comments regarding the lack of managerial support, and this is why regular catch-ups and one-to-ones are just so important. Amanda mentioned care character. It's a great tool to support those early learning and development conversations. Be sure to check it out if you haven't already. And according to our candidate survey, the top 3 features that are important to candidates when searching for that job before they've even applied to us are job satisfaction, training and development opportunities, and a good work-life balance. So we must make sure that when we're offering these, that we're talking about them, and making sure that, as I say, we're actually delivering on the needs of the people that want to or are deciding to whether to opt into social care during the application process. So similarly here, when asked whether they felt valued by their company during an exit interview, a third rated this as poor. The data is highlighting how much that onboarding, training and career progression plays a vital role for our teams, especially when they're new to care, when they haven't worked in our sector before. So those regular meetings, those regular check-ins with a manager, with a buddy, and generally being able to feel appreciated, all really important. And while family obligations might just be something we can't tackle, and it's an inevitable form of exit for some of our employees. We can definitely do something about changing perceptions of working in adult social care and making people feel more valued. So, should we make it a bit more positive? Let's have a bit of a positivity.
Yeah, a bit of a positive spin.
All right. Over to you.
So, on the bright side, it's not all doom and gloom. To find and then retain new carers to the care sector means looking in new places, doing things differently, and encouraging people with no experience but with the right values to join. And the good news is values-based recruitment does work so long as new to care employees are given the support and the training that they need to be successful. And I love those 2 points on the slide. Not going back 3 years, but 5 years, 55% of care employees who've chosen contact with the individuals they support as their top reason for what they most enjoy about the job. So it's important to remember those factors. The type of work is what attracts people. So actually, often we have a healthy pipeline of people coming in. So the doors are wide open, but unfortunately, the front door's open, but our back door is open as well. And if we can shut the back door and keep people, then we won't have such a retention problem moving forward. Next page. So again, looking on the bright side, we're seeing some improvements in retention in pockets. And where this is happening, some key things are being put in place. So a very insightful article published on Skills for Care by a registered manager gave a great summary of positive actions that were put in place with fantastic results, reducing turnover from a whopping 92% at his service to 3% over a 2-year period. We'll share the link to the article, but in summary, the key to the turnaround was the manager building relationships with the team, listening to them to find out areas for concern, ensuring new hires were the right fit with the right values, upskilling team leaders, ensuring that they had training and support to lead in clearly defined roles. And they then put a greater focus on staff engagement with things like serving breakfast at shift handovers once a month, so the manager got a chance to see everyone both day and night, and also making sure that they celebrated success. So really working hard on the culture and the team unity. And I think another great one to look at is Signature Senior Living case study, which we reference here. I think this came out last week, actually. Signature recently announced 96% retention amongst their regional carer team members. So this role, these people work flexibly across their homes when extra carers are needed to cover annual leave or sickness. Regional carers are assigned a 2-week rota, given 2 weeks in advance. They get a personalised rota that matches their requirements, meaning the programme has been particularly popular with people who have personal caring responsibilities and those who are studying. So it ticks quite a few of the boxes of our friends that we talked about. They receive guaranteed hours. They are not on 0-hour contracts, and they're paid a premium rate to cover a regional patch. So there's some movement there. But the total cost of the programme is approximately half what it would cost to use agency carers to fill those same holiday and sick leave vacancies. So I really recommend checking out the article on Care Home Professional. It was inspiring reading. So to recap, make every experience a positive one. Consider positive pass-through and how you can use your bank staff to give more flexibility and bring down costs. Make your induction amazing, as amazing as possible. Maybe get the team involved in helping them map out what perhaps wasn't great and what they would do if it was up to them. Give buddies and mentors to the team and give learning opportunities wherever you can. Have a retention strategy with a dedicated lead to champion retention at a senior level and drive forward these types of initiatives. Certainly what the NHS are doing. And to have a well put together strategy, it really needs to be informed by your data. So we've shared some of ours with you today. But I wonder, do you all know what your top issues are in your organisation? And how many Lisas, Olus, Maximes you might have with similar challenges? And if not, then would certainly recommend looking at how you deliver retention, stay and exit interviews to gather this data and then inform your plan. Look at better rotas, could e-rostering support flexible working and give managers the tools they need to give that flexibility. Looking first at offering flexibility to contracted hour employees, offering overtime to some, and the use of bank staff effectively, that can significantly support retention and bring down agency costs. And we hear that more flexibility and more notice of shifts are what carers want. Not always easy to achieve, but shouldn't necessarily be impossible. And I would also throw in there, although it's not up on the screen, you develop relationships with your local FE colleges and universities, and think about where you try and attract people into some of those groups where you can get that positive pass through. And then, of course, make sure that one-to-ones are happening and ask for feedback regularly. Allow the managers to manage, give them the tools to get it right. Their priority will always be to provide the best care possible for their residents and service users, but it can't be at the expense of not prioritising the team, because ultimately, if you have a high turnover, then the quality of care that you're delivering will inevitably suffer. So, in answer to our question, is retention better or worse? Whilst the latest data paints a marginally more positive message, I don't think we're anywhere near saying that we've cracked it as a sector. And as you've heard from us today, every year we speak to employees and the trends and themes, they're not changing. And Dave and I have worked together for 17 years, shockingly. And I mean, certainly in the last 5 years, there's not really been any change. So I hope today has been helpful in understanding what we're seeing, what people are telling us, but most importantly, that there were some takeaways that you can put into practice yourselves. Thank you.
We've raced through that this morning. We've got loads of time, and great to see so many of you in the room. I mean, I guess this is an opportunity for you to have your say, to speak to your colleagues within the sector. And ask any questions or share any comments or anything that you see within your own organisations. I see a sea of everybody with cameras up at the moment. So if anyone's feeling particularly brave this morning and want to share what they're seeing within an organisation, this is your opportunity. So we'll just check the chat if there's any questions. Thank you, Charlie.
Thanks,
Lovely
Charlie.
to hear that we've shared some useful content today. Just gonna have a quick look at the chat. No other questions in the chat. So yeah, if there are no questions or anybody that wanted to come and share anything, we will leave it there today. We will share, as we've mentioned, as part of a follow-up to you all, a link to a landing page where you can access the slides, the recording, and the resources that we've talked about this morning. And we'd very much welcome you to make contact with Amanda and myself. You know, we're genuinely interested in hearing what others are doing and how they're tackling this long-standing issue.
I'm amazed we finished soon, because we could talk about retention all day. So yeah, that's a genuine. If you want an offline chat, do let us know. We'd be happy to follow up.
But other than that, thank you very much for joining.
Thanks all.
All the best.
Thank you very much.